in this area of the township is already at its current design capacity load. So I know this because the project to fix that problem goes through my lakefront. We call it front lawn, backyard. I don't know, the lakeside portion of my property. So I've been talking to the engineers over time about this. I knew what the issue was, but it never occurred to me until you made your comment, and it triggered a thought in my mind. And I think that it would be inappropriate until we get this capacity fixed, and we are in the process of doing that, to adding more land that would draw heavily on the sewer until we get that done. Okay, so you say, all right, well, when is that? Well, the problem is known. It's a known problem. The fix is known, and it's a known fix. The best estimate I got from Lawrence today was that the project for the expansion of that pipe, and it goes all along Tupper, goes across the river, to get capacity for this area of the township, and I'm going to call it the northwest quadrant. I don't know that that's totally precise, but it's generally correct, is that we'll start in the fall of next year. So basically a year from now, I would guess the project's going to take, we'll just say 6 months. So we're talking probably about 18 months. And I also think that we should consider some kind of a moratorium on rezonings in this quadrant, or whatever the sewer district zone proper name is. There's probably, Mike, you might even be able to tell me what it is, unless, until we have the capacity. Because if we don't do that, what we're doing is creating competition amongst all of the folks that are already zoned. Some of them already have site plans, and it becomes a race to get to the limited capacity that we have. So I agree with Mike. I think that this should eventually be R3 property. I just don't think R3 property right now until we can get the infrastructure problem resolved.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Is there any other questions or comments from the board?
Could we hear from Melissa Allen?
They are on. Would you like to hear? Melissa, could you please unmute and address the question, or address what Treasurer Tucker has just discussed?
Yes, that is 100% accurate. We monitor that sewer to make sure it's flowing well, and it is. But per the design, all the approved projects that are to be built that will flow through that sewer, it will be at capacity once everything is built out. So that's why we've already designed. We've got approval for said design for the upgrade to that sewer so that it will have more capacity moving forward.
Melissa, it's my understanding, you and I talk about this project quite often, that project will start. Can you let the residents know when you think that project will start? I know the board still has to prove it, but
at this point, it looks like we should be ready. I mean, we're really ready effectively. We're just waiting on the Eagle permit to come back, but and then we've got, of course, bid it out, award the project and all that. Plus, we would rather construction happen in the winter months, just because of the nature of where this is and what it's doing. So we don't want to do it in the spring and run into summer. So that's why we're looking at fall of 25 to start the project.
So this project will start in the fall of 2025 with the expected completion date?
Probably 6 to 10 months after that.
So we're talking mid-2026.
Yes.
So I'm sure all of you understood exactly what Treasurer Tucker said, is that right now we have a sewer system that's near capacity. And what he's recommending to this board is that do a moratorium on changing any zoning until we have the capacity. Am I correct?
zoning that would require, will cause an increase in sewer. Like, for instance, we had a rezoning just before this one that was going the other direction. That also I would be in favor of because it's gonna take less potential load off the system. And again, I'm talking about a relatively short term, period of time, but to your point, I think that's the right approach at this point in time.
So if I can just jump in and ask a question relating to that, I don't think outlots that are on Ralston Road, part of the point of this rezoning request was to reconfigure those lots to get their septic systems on the same parcel. Now, those small lots are zoned R3. And so the rezoning request would allow them to expand to repartition their lots to get the septic on those parcels. So with that said, it sounds like the moratorium you are talking about would not affect a request in that.
Right, because it's not something that's gonna increase the load on the sewer system until we can get it fixed.
So I have a question about what you just brought up. You're saying that we're at capacity and this project is underway to fix that section of the sewer system.
Yes.
Should we be aware of any other sections where we have the same issue?
Melissa?
No.
We do not have this issue anywhere else in the sewer.
Okay, so it's an isolated area where we're at capacity.
Correct.
Thank you.
Melissa, what is the appropriate name for this section of the sewer system, if there is one?
I don't know. Because we changed the name of it, but it's effectively what you said. It's the northwest area there of the highway.
All right, come on, Melissa, you know we refer to it as the Tucker Project.
But that is what we call it.
Well, I guess my question, Melissa, could you and I then put together, well, I guess we really wouldn't have to until the request comes up. I mean, if we're gonna do a moratorium, then until the request comes up, I don't know if we can draw the boundaries, but yeah. Okay.
Well, Mike's gonna tell you wanna
You
get
get
it
the
in place.
moratorium before you get a request.
Right, okay, so, all right.
So, I mean, that's something you need for the next meeting, if that's what you want to consider.
All right, any other questions or comments from the board?
So are we saying we're gonna table this tonight? I mean, how?
Well,
No, I think we have to vote on it.
I mean, the applicant can ask us to postpone if they wanna write it out. It's just gonna take a little bit of time that, I would, if it was me, I would ask the applicant to wanna vote or postpone.
Mr. Deemer, I saw you here. Would you like to come up? If you would, please. Thank you for attending. Just want to ask you one question. Would you consider, before we go to the vote, putting your application on hold? I know you're in due diligence. Again, we're not here to discuss project or anything, just a rezoning. Do you want to postpone that so you can go back to the seller? Or do you want us to take a vote on it now?
The sellers are here today as well, and this is going to be done in such phases. So, like the burden on the infrastructure isn't going to happen with all the properties being developed at the same time. I think what we're trying to achieve today is what I was hoping to achieve. Say, obviously, to get the rezoning done, but to also maybe say, okay, if we were to do this in phases, by the time we get to phase 2, that year process, let's say, or whatever it takes, is there an opportunity for us to at least secure the property, start doing our end of the infrastructure, and getting a portion of it so that it can be buildable, and then once the sewer gets to the point where it is able to handle the rest of the residential homes, then we can continue on phases 2, 3, and so on.
Thank you.
That's what we're. This is news to us as well, though. So, yeah,
Appreciate
it's
that.
out.
Is there any other questions or comments from the board? So would your answer be you still want us to move forward with the?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'd like to move forward, but
Well, I certainly can't tell you how the board's going to vote.
Okay.
So I'm putting it out there.
I would like to move forward. But if there was conditions to be put on it, I would be in agreement with that as long as we can do something in the here and now. So yes, I mean, if, I'd like to see the vote on it, and then, but I'd like to be, again, with consideration of how we can phase this thing out, so that it doesn't hurt the township, doesn't hurt anyone for that matter,
Well,
the
then what
infrastructure.
would we not need then?
That'd be, can't do that on this request.
Yeah, on this
There's no
request, we
zoning.
can't.
So I mean, I guess right now, what we're asking for is to go to follow the master plan and see about getting a rezone from ag to R3. I would like to proceed with that. Okay, rather than just tabling it and waiting a year and a half, to come back to do this. Because I mean, if they're not, again, I'm in a due diligence period, like we had talked about. If this doesn't happen now, if the sale of this property or anything like that doesn't happen now, not only am I stuck, but so are the sellers. And so we're just trying to make it fair for everybody, that if we can get it zoned to R3 and then discuss possibly doing it in phases, that's not going to add additional pressure on the public system.
Any other questions? Rob? No. Okay,
No, I just think, you know, a year and a half is a pretty long time. I'd like to, you know, assume that it's not gonna add any pressure, but a year and a half is a long time to have it zoned as R3 if we're gonna then, you know, if we don't want anything built on it for that period of time. I mean, obviously the whole development, it does sound like wouldn't go up, but, if we're worried about it already being pretty close to capacity, I think a year and a half is a long time to have it. So
I mean, the moratorium?
no, I'm saying like, if we rezoned it as R3, I would imagine there could be houses built in the year and a half that would then have to have sewer access. So I would think we would want a moratorium, maybe not quite, and maybe until the project starts for the sewer portion, but.
Yeah, I don't think houses would go up if there's a sewer issue, right? Because at the site plan,
At the site plan.
that's when you are evaluate available REUs and whatnot, right? So we know there's an issue. If by the time they're ready to pull permits, those issues have not been resolved, permits won't be issued. Right, but I suppose even big picture, I don't see a site plan being approved until capacity has been addressed.
So, I don't know if I'm asking this the right way. So what you're saying is that now that we know, the township knows that there's a capacity issue, even if we do follow the master plan, which I certainly believe, and I know that you do, that even if we changed it to R3, you're telling me you don't think anything, no, I would hope you would never send something up from the planning commission, because I think the board would turn it down until the capacity issue is taken care of, now that it's, you know, that we now have knowledge of it. So what you're saying is, are you recommending then, or to follow the master plan, do that, and then the planning commission is going to do it?
So I'm gonna give you two statements here.
All right,
All right.
I'm ready. No,
He's got a voice problem.
He's got a voice, he had surgery.
Well, let's let him say it. Let him say it. We'll reiterate what he says.
All right. So from the site plan issue, right? The site plan would not move forward if the capacity is not there. Wouldn't be approved because that's not what we would do, right? From the master plan side of things, one thing that we've said is that just because a classification is in the master plan doesn't mean that the conditions have been met for that classification. So with the understanding that there's a sewer capacity issue, you may make the determination that it is not in compliance with the master plan. So I would say your recommendation tonight would be based on the master plan and how you interpret compliance with the master plan. So again, just because it says medium density residential, right, doesn't mean the conditions are appropriate at this point in time for medium density residential. So we talked about on Silver Lake Road, where there's, we identified new areas for commercial. We've said that just because those areas are there doesn't mean that the conditions at this point in time are appropriate for all, rezonings. So that should be part of your determination as you discuss this, right? If you find that it complies with the master plan, you should approve it. But just because there's a classification that says medium density is not the only part of the master plan itself. So, based on the question you asked, if your finding is that there is not enough sewer capacity, then your finding could also be based on that. It is not compliant with the master plan. Does that make sense?
Part of the compliant.
Did you hear that? Did everybody understand that? John, you want to summarize in a legal?
Well, what Mike is saying is just because you're consistent with the future land use map in the master plan doesn't mean you're compliant or consistent with the entire future land use plan, and that the utility infrastructure or other infrastructure are components that are part of that process. So you can say, yes, this is future land use mapped for that, and will probably be that at some point in time, but this is not the point in time for reason X. And in this case, one of the reasons is sewer capacity.
So you're saying that this would be the time, what you're saying is that we can consider not making the change now because of the knowledge of the sewer that we have.
I believe it's legally supportable that it was not consistent with the master plan, even though it may be consistent with the future land use map because of the lack of utility.
Okay, so now another question that I have though. Would it be the same thing to be consistent with the future land use map to approve R3 at the same time, knowing that nothing until the capacity issue is complete? So if now the future land map mirrors our master plan, but we know that because of the capacity issue, nothing would come to the board, which would prevent any building on that until the capacity issue is done. I just want to make sure the board understands everything.
It's pragmatic, what you're describing, but site plans do not come before this board. And as long as I'm sitting on the plan commission, I think you can reasonably assume I'm going to be alert to that. But I missed it until Christine made her comments. It didn't occur to me, even though the project is running through my front yard. Okay, so it's possible. So those are distinct things that would get you to the same point. But what we're trying to decide tonight is whether or not this is consistent with the master plan. I think we can all agree that it's consistent with the future land use map. But in light of the utility problem that we have with sewer capacities, I think we can safely determine that at this point in time, it is not consistent with the master plan, and we're working on it. This is something that is relatively short term. No, not trying to quibble about timeframes, but
Yeah, I just wanted to say I think we all expect to approve. The board hasn't actually approved this sewer expansion.
Correct.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we all probably we all would like our sewer system not to be really strained. So we're probably all expecting to approve it, but it just seems to me kind of speculative to say that we're gonna, we're gonna approve the rezoning when the rezoning isn't supported by the infrastructure yet. I mean, we don't know. I don't expect anything to happen. Some sort of disastrous thing could happen if we don't have funding and we end up not.
Sea turtles are discovered somewhere.
Yeah.
Or, whatever.
Or
the
new board comes in December and says, we don't want to expand the sewer.
We don't want any development.
Yeah, or something.
Good luck, John. The sewer gets stopped right there at your property.
I could start selling
Drill holes in it.
start selling permits.
Yeah, so I just think it's kind of too speculative to approve right now. And obviously that doesn't mean assuming the future land use map stays the same, then once this gets built, if we're following follow the master plan, we will have, we'll be approving it then.
Correct. Any other questions or comments from the board? A motion is in order to adopt an amendment to zoning ordinance number 594 to rezone parcel 0. Now, the public comment, this is not a night for public comment, sir. We did have public comment last time, just so you know that the board does have everybody's comments, they have their names, they have their concerns, all of that sort of stuff, so.
But you had comments, and then you guys made a decision, and then you didn't open it back up for comments, so
Wait,
now
wait.
you're making a decision.
We haven't made any decision.
We haven't made any decision. We're voting on it right now.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
All right, no problem. To rezone parcel number 06-16-300-010 from ag to R3 as presented.
I'll move the motion.
Support. All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Crew, will you please call the roll?
Tucker,
No.
Lorraine,
No.
Gopel,
No.
Kessler,
No.
Reed,
No,
Patrick,
No.
Crew votes no, motion fails.
Everybody understand what just happened? All right, thank you. Next, under adoption of ordinances, proposed ordinance, this is on short-term